Hello Crypto World, and a special hello to the Decent.bet family. Here back in Vegas with Jedediah Taylor and our newest member and advisor, Marc Lipparelli. Thanks for coming in today.
Sure, happy to be here.
So one of the things we were doing today is to introduce Marc Lipparelli. We're super excited to have Marc on board with us. So first off, I'm just going to ask you to give a bit of background on yourself, Marc. If you can just let the community know what your experience is and what you've done in the past and
Sure.
what you're doing now.
No, happy to do it. My career has been all about a connection of technology, policy, regulation, all mostly with the gaming industry. So started my career in a small systems company. We were making serious changes to technology and how casinos were managed, and evolved from that place to developing products related to slot machines, and then ultimately became directly involved in the evolution of online gaming in Nevada and elsewhere. That has taken me to a lot of different places in a lot of different countries, seen policy frameworks around what we do here in the U.S. in almost every jurisdiction, including tribal. And now I'm using that experiences to advise companies like yours and what way to approach the marketplace and be careful and respectful of a regulated business.
Yeah, right.
Sure. And you held a pretty prestigious title here in Nevada. Do you want to elaborate briefly on that?
Sure. I was asked to serve on the Nevada Gaming Control Board and became a member and then ultimately chairman of that board. And it was an interesting time during my 4 years on the board. There was a financial crisis underway, and at the same time, we saw the kind of ramp of online poker, which was putting all kinds of questions in people's mind of how fast the commercial gaming industry or the land-based industry should progress into the online space. So I was directly involved in that, but became intimately aware of all the different twists and turns that go with regulating a pretty massive industry in our state.
Totally. And just hearing you describe it, it was a very unique time in Nevada. I lived here in Las Vegas actually during the time, and I was licensed real estate agent in 2007, so saw the whole bubble burst, and then obviously saw the transition of internet gaming be introduced to Nevada, so on and so forth. So really cool stuff.
So that leads really well into my next question is, obviously we had bricks and mortar, excuse me, bricks and mortar casinos, and you've seen this massive transition into online. What's your experience, and what are some of the big things that you've seen in that transition from bricks and mortar onto online?
I think it's a classic case of business evolution. We're seeing the consumer change, and the gaming industry is not missing that radical change in how consumers behave. And during the early part of my tenure on the Gaming Control Board, that was becoming very evident. Given the rush to online poker, and that was probably the early seeds of people moving from a brick and mortar experience to consuming their gaming either in the social gaming space. Sports during my tenure also moved from being purely a visit the casino kind of exercise to moving to mobile. And there are all kinds of potential conflicts that get created with those kinds of things, both within the regulatory framework and the commercial part of that. So people have to move carefully, and they're thoughtful about it, and there's new entrants that bring new ideas, and oftentimes those things mesh, and that's what we're really seeing today. There's this, I think, grand convergence going on between social and sports and commercial gaming and lotteries and the like, and so this space is very active.
Right.
And changing every day, right? Evolving.
Changing quickly.
Yeah, no, I think that brings us to like cryptocurrency. Is we've seen kind of the transition of the brick and mortar to online, and we obviously have our perspectives of how cryptocurrency will affect that evolution. But how do you see cryptocurrency affecting online gaming?
So far, my knowledge of crypto is that it falls in line with a number of key watershed changes that have occurred in the industry. The industry moved very slowly for decades, really. It stayed in kind of one camp. And then starting with the late 60s and into the 70s, slot machines started to take on much more capability technologically. And then in the early part of the 90s, almost everyone was building their slot platforms off PC technology. And that really vaulted the industry forward. Crypto falls in line with a lot of those things that come from the outside. and change the way people think about how transactions could be processed, how security can be processed, and that's oftentimes where there's tension between how fast the regulations can move and how fast commercial industry can move. But usually, if it's a benefit to consumers, if it brings greater trust, or if it brings flexibility, those things are ultimately going to start to fall into place. And we see an industry now that I think is becoming more receptive to those new ideas, because they understand that while it may affect their competitive standing, it also affects their relationship with their customers. And if they want to build that trust and loyalty with customers, they've got to meet them where their customers are. And today, that's where the customer is.
We just wish that they moved the same speed as crypto.
Yeah, right.
But we're happy to run the regulation with them. Yeah. I just wish they were with us on board of the time frame.
I applaud your efforts for doing that. There have been people that have tried to avoid that, and I think they do so at their detriment, because these are well-established processes, and to the extent that you guys are going to continue to move forward. But I also think you can be catalysts for change. I think regulation needs to meet those changes in a much more efficient way, and some of these regulators are starting to understand that. So I applaud some of those that are more open-minded, and for those that don't embrace it, I think the world will continue to pass them by.
And that's us being so far ahead, in my opinion, from regulation kind of keeping up, is hopefully we can be influencers with people like you on the team to help them architect regulation and new policies in a way that protect the consumers, as well as facilitate this new realm of transparency and trust between the providers and the users.
That's been my #1 objective when I sit down with regulators, is to help them understand that to go up a level, get to that 30,000-foot level, and try to get them to say, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Don't get down into the bottom line of what your regulation says. Let's go up higher and discuss what your regulatory obligation is, or your regulatory goal. And perhaps crypto in some ways can start solving some of those problems in a way that can avoid having to have 100 pages of regulations that in there.
Be open-minded, think out the box, and if it ultimately moves everybody's agenda forward, why be closed-minded to it?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, I think that it wraps up. I really appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us today and explaining to the community your past, and we're really excited to have Marc on board and to be helping us streamline this entire process with the rest of our legal team. And
where Marc
you're very keen to get going.
So excited to have Marc on board, and it was really humbling to have you accept our offer as an outside advisor, just due to the credibility and experience that you have. And for the community, where Marc will be instrumental in assisting Decent.bet and all of us accomplish our goals, is through that regulatory process. And as we get licensed in more and more jurisdictions and open up our offering to more of the world, having Marc on board is going to say numbers to those regulators that he has confidence in our business model, as well as the experience and guidance that you can offer us is the best way to approach it is going to be invaluable, in my opinion. One of the things that I'm most excited about. So, well, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Marc.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Until next time, guys. See ya.